Welcome, everybody, to the RotoWire WNBA show where we talk about fantasy basketball. I am Alex Barutha, filling in for Jason Shabilsky, who is on vacation. I'll do my best to fill his shoes, but I think that's pretty much impossible when it comes to our WNBA coverage. Next to me here is Kirien Sprecher. Today, we're going to talk about the week's action from around the league, including Caitlin Clark's potential return. We'll also break down some of our top waiver wire ads following the All-Star break and discuss some top matchups we're looking forward to ahead of this short week. But first, as you know, we have a new look here at RotoWire, and for a limited time, you can use code YouTube15. We have plenty of new and exciting RotoWire WNBA content coming your way. Subscription now gets you access to the RotoWire football draft kit for free. Obviously, we have fantasy football coming up. There are plenty of useful features to check out, including draft plans, pick suggestions, and insights for the rest of your league. I don't play much fantasy football, Kiri. I'm pretty locked into the NBA, but if I am diving into a league, this is not me. Like I use our tools all the time. Like it's really the best stuff out there. Again, code YouTube15 will get you the best price possible for the RotoWire subscription. And as always, during today's show, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. We'll get them answered. If you ask live, we'll get them answered on the show, but we will be active in the comments as well afterward to provide any additional insights. Let's jump into the news, Kirien. Today's top WNBA storylines. It's a lot of injuries. I guess at the very top, we have Ryan Howard out through July with a hyperextended knee.
Yeah, a lot of injuries. Hopefully this, the extended break with the All-Star game and whatnot gives some time for these teams to get healthy for the stretch run here. Ryan Howard is not going to be one of those players out through at least July with a hyperextended knee, like you said. Maya Caldwell has been starting in Howard's absence. And then Naz Hillman has also, probably a candidate for a little more usage responsibility when on the court. Obviously, Howard is a primary ball handler for this Atlanta Dream team, and Naz Hillman doesn't really bring that to the table, but Howard also plays on the wings, and she gets a lot of rebounds and playmaking things. Those are things that Hillman can contribute with. And then I mentioned it last week too. Tahina Paopao, she is the high risk, high reward option here in Atlanta with the Howard news. Paopao's role has been up and down all season. Earlier in the campaign was probably her best stretch. If she can see 25 minutes per game with Howard out, Paopao has the higher upside over Caldwell and Hillman. It's just not a guarantee that Paopao is going to get those minutes. One day she's at 20, the next game she's at 10. But the Dream are in a good spot right now. They're probably going to stay pat with this Maya Caldwell starting lineup. Top 4 team in the league right now, even with this injury. Obviously, this injury is going to play a huge part in the Dream's success over the next couple of weeks. And if they start dropping games, they're going to they'll make moves. And I think Paopao is that they're kind of that bullet letter, that gun in the holster, right? Like they don't want to play Paopao 30 plus minutes as a rookie. They don't want to limit what they're doing on the court right now, winning games. But if they start to struggle, Paopao is the player that they can turn to provide a jolt for this team. They don't need that yet. Like I said, their place in the standings is fine. But without Howard, if they start dropping games, they could turn to Paopao, and she could be an absolute fantasy star towards the fantasy playoffs and towards, the final couple of weeks of the fantasy regular season.
I mean, you don't see many rookies as efficient as she is. She's actually right now 99th percentile in effective field goal percentage. Also a great passer, really nice assist to turnover ratio. She's just really skilled for how young she is. So we'll see what they do there. We also, Caitlin Clark, who has been struggling with injuries all season, did not play in the All-Star game. Carrying, and her status is just it's murky.
She's not playing tomorrow. We found that, okay. She's unlikely to play tomorrow. But she's progressing was the latest update.
Okay. And then, yeah, so I mean, long term, I guess if they're saying it's unlikely, the Fever feel like maybe there's a chance she comes back in the next game or maybe 2 games later. I mean, I don't know. Do you feel like you're getting a vibe from the way they're talking about her injury?
I feel like the way they've been talking about her injuries all season. First, the injury the first injury she had this season was a quadriceps injury on her left leg. And then she had a groin injury, and then she aggravated the groin injury right before the All-Star break after coming back and playing in a couple games. So it's all with her left leg. So maybe they're correlated, maybe not. I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor. But when you have different parts of the same leg getting injured, that's probably some overcompensation sort of thing. But like even when Clark has been on the court, it hasn't been what we saw as a rookie, especially that 3-point shot. She's really struggled. This isn't just meme material anymore. I know you brought it up last week, the Centel, but she's 2 for 35 in 5 road games. 2 for 35 from that's a story. Obviously 5 games is a limited sample size. 35 attempts is a lot of attempts, but she's Caitlin Clark. She's going to be shooting 7-8 threes a game, even if they aren't falling, and she's going to be encouraged to do that. But yeah, I feel like the vibe with Caitlin Clark's injuries this season has been they're minor things, and we're a good team. And if we want to compete with the Lynx and the Liberty, we need Caitlin Clark at 100%, and she hasn't been that. So I think they're going to continue to give her games and time until she's back. When she returned before the All-Star break, right? She missed 4 games with the groin injury, and she returned. She played 25, 26, 25, and then 28 minutes before re-aggravating it. That just sounds like she came back too early, right? That's not a full workload for an MVP candidate, 25 minutes. So I think they're going to be more hesitant this time. She'll probably sit out at least tomorrow, probably through this week would be my vibe. But I expect Caitlin Clark to be full go for the fantasy playoffs. So if that's what you're worried about, don't sweat about that right now, but I am expecting at least a few more absences. And, we'll talk about her later, but Ari McDonald is probably the go-to player in Indiana. Well, not the go-to player, but the go-to waiver wire addition while he's out.
Neither of us are doctors, but both of us play basketball and are right-handed. You're right-handed,
yes,
right?
Yes.
I feel like I've seen you shoot so many times, I feel like I should know that you're right-handed. But if you're a right-handed player, you're going to be driving off of that left leg. You're using it mostly to balance when you shoot also. And if you go right, your left is usually the first thing you push off of. So it's going to be I think that's probably affecting her shooting, because honestly, the rest of her game has been fine. Her passing's been great. She's improved in the steals category. That hasn't really been an issue, but yeah, the shooting is tough. And I assume it's just something's not right with the left leg right now. We also had Angel Reese return to action in the All-Star game after an absence. Probably load management right before the All-Star break. The Sky scored 49 points in that game. They were taking it easy. But tell us how she was playing before then, Kirien.
Yeah, I mean, Reese, I said it, bold prediction before the season. Reese got, I think it was a 4th place MVP vote as a rookie, which is probably a bit ridiculous. Even as a Chicago Sky fan, I can admit that. But Reese is an MVP candidate, a perennial MVP candidate moving forward. She led the league in rebounds, and we can talk all day, more meme content about the me-bounds. If you take away her offensive rebounds, Angel Reese still leads the league in total rebounds, just accounting with her defensive rebounds. So yeah, we can make jokes, whatever. Angel Reese is the best rebounder in the league. Her scoring has taken a huge uptick recently, and she's beginning to develop that playmaking that the Sky kind of hinted at early in the season. With Reese and Camila Cardoso, the Sky's future needs to be 2 bigs. And in order for that to work, Angel Reese needs to be the playmaking big, because Cardoso isn't really, that type of player. She's a fantastic player, but Reese has more potential in that, in the playmaking department. In her previous 10 games before sitting out the final game before the All-Star break, Reese was averaging 18 points, 15 boards, 4 assists, and 2 stocks. That's MVP stuff right there. The Sky were 4-4 in those first 8 games. They lost 2 straight before the break. They had a big upset win over the Lynx, and then the next game against the Lynx, absolute total dud. The Sky started off really, really poorly. They kind of evened it out, and now they're kind of plateaued where they're just kind of stuck in this tier below playoff contenders. Reese is playing like an MVP. She can carry them if they make it to the postseason, but right now there needs to be more production surrounding her. And talk about another teammate that missed time before the All-Star break and missed those 2 losses was Ariel Atkins, who also has a TBD return timeline. She got injured in that second game against the Lynx, which was a big loss. She only played like 15, 20 minutes in that game and then sat out the final 2 contests. So yes, Reese is playing really well, and Atkins was playing well too, and they were winning games. You see Atkins drop out of that place, out of the lineup, Reese out of the lineup, and the sky completely fall apart. So if they don't get Atkins back, it's going to be tough for the Sky to win games, but Reese is locked in as, a top 3 fantasy option the rest of the way.
He's been a lot more efficient shooting the ball this year. I feel like that gets buried in the narratives. Like she has been way more efficient. And I think it's a good thing to have her try to expand her role as a playmaker, even if it comes with more turnovers, because she's so young. You're not like a title team. So it's like, let her go out there and try to figure some stuff out. It'll probably end up being a good thing in the long run. We also have Marina Mabry and Deshaun Carrington have not played since June 20th, and they're TBD this week. We're still waiting for updates. How do you feel like that situation is progressing?
Yeah, so the update with Mabry was out through the All-Star break, and then no timetable after that. So while we have her at RotoWire listed as a game time decision, we're probably treating her as doubtful moving forward until there's another update. And we're going to talk about, again, a lot of Connecticut guards that are stepping up in Mabry's absence. Connecticut hasn't been winning games, but the product was a little bit better before the All-Star break. So there's no real rush to bring Mabry back. And then Carrington, she was listed as questionable before the All-Star break for Dallas. But Dallas has a lot of rookie guards playing really well right now. We'll highlight a couple of them in the waiver wire section. We've talked about them before: Azia James, JG Quinterly. I don't think there's a real rush to bring either of these veteran players back right now. We have, relied on Mabry and Carrington in fantasy the last couple of seasons. Mabry has been, a top 2 pick or top first 2 round pick in fantasy recently. But right now on their current squads, they weren't really playing winning ball before they got hurt. And the players that have stepped up, a lot of rookies too, have stepped up in Carrington and Mabry's absence, obviously for different teams. But I just feel the vibe for me right now is there's no reason to rush these players back. They weren't playing winning ball. They weren't really contributing. We have rookies that are playing good ball. Connecticut, Dallas aren't really like teams that are contending right now either. So that playing time is going to trickle more towards the rookies eventually if it hasn't already happened already. So while Mabry and Carrington could be back in the next couple of weeks, I do not expect strong fantasy production from them over the fantasy playoffs.
It's very kind of you to say the Sun aren't really contending this year when they have 3 wins. Very kind way to put it. Oh man.
Well, Jason and I were talking last week, and he was like, they're playing better, and then he's like, well, he's like, I forget that they only have 3 wins, but you watch them, and it's been better than the beginning of the season, which is totally fair. But obviously, you got to start putting W's up before too long. But you also have Juju Watkins, sitting there next year. That could be a juicy number 1 overall pick.
That's true. No, I feel, and NBA wise, that's how I always feel like I'm talking about the Charlotte Hornets. I'm like, they're not really contending, but like, you watch them.
Yeah.
They only lose by 8 most of the time,
Is the Eric Collins, is that the announcer?
Yeah.
The Hornets? Yeah. He makes it more fun.
He does. We also have 2 players who separate teams, but may be returning soon. What do we know about Cameron Brink and Jonquel Jones right now?
Yeah, so Cameron Brink, the update during the preseason was she'll be back in June. Well, June came and went, and there was no update. Yay, fantasy sports. That happens a lot. But now the update is that she'll be back before July. There's 9 days, 10 days left. How many days are in July? I don't know. But, so she could be back soon. That's what they're saying. But like I said, the preseason timeline was wrong too. So don't count your chickens before they hatch. Jason and I just finished a dynasty draft actually with some guys some folks that we met on Blue Sky. And I took Cameron Brink in like round 4 or 5 with the assumption that she'll won't miss any time. And obviously she was knocked down a lot in the preseason rankings, and still in those, those were the rankings we were going off of in this draft. But I think Brink could be deliver 2nd round value over the last couple of weeks if she does return to a 25+ minute role, in the next couple of weeks.
And then we have an update that there is no update in Phoenix with Copper, Sable. There's a lot of day to day, like it's funny how this happens in both WNBA and NBA, where it's like, yeah, they're day to day for a month. Like it's it is really frustrating.
And so, similar to Connecticut, Phoenix has a lot of injuries, but players are stepping up, so there's no real rush to bring these superstars back. And not similarly to Connecticut, Phoenix is actually winning a ton of games, so there's really no rush. Kalea Copper, Satu Sabali, they were both listed as day-to-day in like early July, and then like missed 4 or 5 games before the All-Star break. They'll be back soon. I would expect limited roles. Those are two, Kalea Copper and Satu Sabali are two players that you're going to have to be patient with, even if they come back this missed time. Dewana Bonner got added to the rotation. They're not going to come back shooting 20 plus, times. They're going to have to find their rhythm again. And Phoenix is winning games, so they don't really need to change too much in there. And then Akoa Makani is the other day-to-day player in Phoenix. She had a concussion before the All-Star break. She should be cleared to suit up. But again, with all of these potential returns, Makani, who had a large role before the All-Star break, that role could be diminished to teens in playing time, in terms of playing time, if Sabali and Kalea Copper also come back.
Let's jump into the waiver wire. Kirien, first, we will get some players out of the way who I know you and Jason have mentioned a lot in previous weeks, who's, if you look on ESPN, like their roster rates may not reflect how many active leagues they're really being used in.
Yeah, so like we were talking about with the Sun, with Marina Mabry being out, we highlighted Sanaya Rivers, we highlighted Bria Hartley. We, those are players that are getting boosts. Rivers has been absolutely fantastic. She had a rookie with a super solid fantasy floor, and that ceiling has just been tapped into recently. 5 July contests, she's scored at least 20 ESPN fantasy points. Sanaya Rivers is a lock-it player in fantasy right now, and she's only rostered in 30% of leagues. That's crazy. And like I said with Mabry, not really worried about that. Hartley, same. She gets a boost with Mabry out, but she's hit or miss, and we've talked about that before. Rostered in only 10% of leagues. If you need a streaming candidate, Hartley is fine. You just know that it's a hit or miss option. And then just quickly, I mentioned her in Dallas, JJ Quinterly. Yes, Dejanay Carrington might come back. Maddie Segrist might come back. They signed Grace Berger to a 7-day contract, clouding the backcourt thing. But JJ Quinterly deserves more respect right now. Rostered in only 9% of leagues, and over her last 5 games, 16 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals. That's super solid. Even I talked about Azia James. Quinterly and James kind of had similar roles, and then Ogubawale came back and James dropped down again. I think Quinterly has established herself as the 3rd best guard in Dallas behind Paige Beckers and Arike Ogubawale. And then
go ahead. Sorry, I was going to say Quinterly. I mean, her and Rivers, it's like assists, steals, blocks, like very much in that sort of, like Quinterly is 12th in assist rate, 10th in steal rate in the whole league. Rivers 5th in steal rate and 24th in block rate. Now, I know it's like everyone's in a points league, but that's the stuff that gives you these really high ceiling performances.
Yeah, absolutely. And no category leagues yet in WNBA Fantasy. But those steals, those are worth multiple points, and you get a couple of steals a game, and that establishes your floor, like you said, very quickly.
Was there someone we didn't mention?
Yeah, Lee Ueru. I've mentioned her a lot on every show. Dallas has gone to the 2 center lineups with Geisel Loader. Tierra McCowan's kind of on the outskirts of the rotation. Misha Hines-Allen is moved back to the bench where she's more comfortable. Lee Ueru was absolutely, buried in Seattle behind one of the best front courts we've seen in a long time. She's getting her opportunity in Dallas and is absolutely thriving. I think, people are worried about Geisel Loader for a little bit. I think Lee Ueru has locked down a starting job for the rest of the season. And, rostered in 20% of leagues is not enough right now, especially for how often we've been mentioning her on this show.
One of the best offensive rebounders in the whole league. That gives you a really high floor. Because if she grabs a lot of them, that's just layups. Yeah. It's free points. So especially against bad rebounding teams, Like she could have big explosions if you're able to stream her in, depending on your league size, rather than just purely add her. Okay, so let's talk about some fresher names. We mentioned Caitlin Clark earlier. Like, when exactly will she be back? And I know Sophie Cunningham is already pretty highly rostered. If she was not rostered in your league, is that someone you're going to grab, or is the ceiling maybe not quite high enough? Because I know her game is kind of like 3-point dependent. Like, if she gets hot from three, there's a big game. If she's not, then you're not getting a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. She had like one big rebounding game of this season, but yeah, you're absolutely right that her production spikes when that 3-point shot is falling. And I think that Sophie, going into the season, I feel like me and Jason and I both were like, she is a must roster player. And then her role, wasn't as big. There was an injury to start the season, and it's taken her some time to get going. Obviously, 2 double-digit scoring outings in her first 14 appearances in the team's first 19 games. But now she's reached that mark in 4 straight. I think, she's a 3-point specialist on offense. When Clark comes back, she'll probably get more open looks and easier looks, maybe not as many of them. So I think, yes, she should be rostered right now. Not super high upside, but I think her floor doesn't take a huge hit when Clark comes back either.
And then we have another relatively higher rostered player here, 39% rostered, Sammy Whitcomb. Tell us about what she's been doing, because it's like it can be kind of hot or cold. Yeah.
So we were talking about all of the injuries in Phoenix, right? Kalea Copper, Satu Sabali, Akoa Makani, and Sammy Whitcomb has stepped in and has been an absolutely fantastic, player. The production has been surprising and fantastic, but it has been sporadic, like you said. She had a 36-point explosion. She moved into the starting lineup July 7th. Huge outing. She'd been playing good off the bench, but then since then she's totaled only 26 points. I think similarly to Sophie Cunningham, like we were just talking about, when that 3-point shot is falling, that upside's there. But without that, she's not a really trustworthy player. Definitely a better streaming candidate than a player you're trusting to start for you every game that she plays.
Let's talk about one more highly rostered player, 39%, Anissa Morrow, who's playing for the worst team in the league, but will have plenty of opportunities with that being the case.
Yeah, Morrow, like we were talking about with Sanea Rivers, Bria Hartley, Connecticut is not winning games, but they're playing a little bit better, and Anissa Morrow has been a big factor in that. Rookie, again, surprisingly, the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese thing, I was like, well, that was just a one-time. They're rookies. They're transcendent players. Rookies are dominating again now, and with the expansion that we're going to see, rookies may be the hot commodity in WNBA fantasy moving forward. Anissa Morrow hasn't dominated fantasy yet, but she's a super consistent player playing that role could only increase. Like I said with Mabry, she wasn't playing winning basketball. This team is going to lean into their rookies before too long if it hasn't happened already. Morrow could be playing 30-plus minutes in the fantasy playoffs, and she's still available in the majority of leagues right now. So go out and get her.
Really, the minutes are the main thing, because I'm looking right now, and she has the 22nd highest per minute fantasy point production in the WNBA. Per 40 minutes, she's averaging 19 points, 13 rebounds, almost 2 steals and a block. So again, like you said, it's just minutes. Like, if she can get those minutes, it'll be a monster fantasy production. Let's get into some of the players who are rostered in 20% or fewer of leagues. I'll just clear out and let you go with your favorite player in the WNBA, Kirien.
Yeah, so I said this last week, and I said if she wasn't rostered in more than 30% of leagues, I was going to be very upset because no one listened to me. But Janelle Salon, she's my favorite player in the league. Big WNBA head. I believe she's related to Janae Salon, the Hornets.
Yeah,
also mentioned the Hornets on this show. But Salon is the Golden State rotation has been absolutely horrendous this season. They're an up-and-coming expansion team that has a lot of solid players. But that also means the rotation changes every game. I think Salon has the highest upside on this team by far. I think her scoring potential is through the roof. It's double digits in 3 straight. The minutes aren't quite there, but similarly tomorrow, like she scored 16 points in 21 minutes, 12 points in 19 minutes, and 10 points in 14 minutes. If the Golden State's kind of teetering on the edge of playoff contention, if they fall out of contention, Salon could be another player that gets 30 plus minutes towards, the fantasy playoffs. And for a player that's scoring near, almost a point a minute, not quite, that's a bit of an exaggeration, 0.75 points per minute, and she starts seeing 30, 35 plus minutes a game, that could be a league winner for you for sure.
Usage is not the issue with Salon. It's mostly efficiency. So if she gets the minutes and she hits her shots, it's gonna be a lot of points. That is for sure. We also have, let's see, who's our next? Naz Hillman, 15% roster is our next down the roster percentage list. She's one of the most efficient shooters in the entire league. Kirien, 1.23 points per shot, also a quality rebounder and shot blocker.
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned, I'll just throw Ari McDonald in here too, because we talked about him. Okay. I talked about him earlier, but Hillman without Howard and McDonald without Clark, these are players that should be rostered in, closer to 25% of leagues. Even if you're just using them as a streaming candidate in a shallower leagues, these players could have spikes in production this week. The Naz Hillman thing, like I said, she's not going to replace Ryan Howard. Ryan Howard's one of the most talented players in the league, but she can do things in the aggregate if you want to get into Moneyball, right? She can get the rebounds and she can get those easy looks that Ryan Howard, where she would normally be operating. And then the Maya Caldwells and Tahina Paupaus handled the perimeter work that Ryan Howard would work. But yeah, I think Hillman and McDonald, even if you're just streaming candidates, those are players that should be in starting lineups this week. But they're probably not players you're adding right now, and you'll be like, oh yes, I got Naz Hillman for the fantasy playoffs. By then, her role will probably be reduced a little bit.
Last player, I believe, on our list here, Rachel Banham, 9% rostered. Again, another player where you're kind of just hoping for some hot 3-point shooting. She just fires away. If she's not doing that, it's not, you're not going to get like a big fantasy outing otherwise. But if you're in a deeper WNBA fantasy league, again, she's only 9% rostered right now.
And this goes back to the Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso stretch. Cardoso came back from AmeriCup. This team kind of turned a corner. Rachel Banham started hitting threes. Angel Reese started playmaking more. You're talking about Angel Reese's playmaking and Rachel Banham's 3-point shooting. Those go hand in hand. Banham had the dud before the All-Star break, but Reese wasn't playing in that game. Neither was Ariel Atkins. So there's a little more responsibility, a little more pressure from the defense on Banham. Before that, Banham had scored in double digits in 9 straight. So while we were talking about other sharpshooters, Sammy Whitcomb, Sophie Cunningham, they're relying on their 3-point shot for production. Banham is that type of player, but she's just been a little more consistent because she has a little bit larger of responsibility in Chicago, because Chicago doesn't have very many good players around Reese and Cardoso.
Before we get to our weekly preview, we do have one question in the chat. Copper, Kirien, do you think she's close to coming back? I know she has a hamstring injury, and I know both of us know from covering a million NBA hamstring injuries that sometimes they're 10 days and then the player comes back and they're fine. Sometimes it's 10 weeks and the player comes back and they're not fine. Looking at you, Cam Thomas. So what do you, is this kind of like a roll of the dice? You just have no idea, or what sort of intel are we getting on that?
Yeah. So just full disclosure, when I was doing the projections this morning, I put her as 50, which would mean she's questionable, right? Because she's day to day. That was the update before the All-Star break, but I left her out of the starting lineup because I feel like if you're day to day, you have to be considered questionable. That's day to day. You're not playing today. You could play tomorrow. That's questionable to me. But I don't, if she is in the starting lineup tomorrow, or if she is cleared to play tomorrow, there's no way she's playing 30 plus minutes. If she is, then I would never project that. I shouldn't say there's no way she'll never do it, but there's no way I would project her to come off this long absence and then play 35 minutes tomorrow. Right. Maybe there's another update and that'll change. I would say you're probably looking at least, July, maybe like beginning of August, early August, you see Copper back at full strength. Even if she's cleared to play in the next couple of games, don't expect full strength, but probably like a week or two. I also see Hunnit mocking me in the chat for my not knowing how many days are in July. So appreciate that.
But yeah, hamstring injuries they're really tricky. I mean, it's not just basketball. They get re-aggravated all the time. You can't come back too early. It's like a rest thing. So, like you mentioned, she might come back and then play like 8 minutes and then 12 minutes and then 15 minutes and then take a game off. You never know.
And look, I'm a Chicago Sky fan. Full disclosure, she finals MVP for the Sky. I love Kalea Copper, but this Phoenix team, they're playing well. Alyssa Thomas is the engine of this team. They just signed Dewana Bonner, who was struggling mightily in Indiana, and she's had a couple of good games in Phoenix. And then if Satu Sabali comes back too, they don't need Copper to be, a production superstar. They just need her to be on the court and play good minutes. So if you're counting on Copper for elite fantasy production over the next couple of weeks on it, you should probably have a plan B or even a plan C.
All right, Kirien, it is time. Let us know what's going on in the WNBA, what you're looking forward to, what you're looking at this week.
Yeah, so three notes that stuck out at me. There's 2 teams that have only 2 games this week, Connecticut and Golden State. So if you're looking at, those Connecticut guards, or you're looking at Janelle Salon for production this week when you're picking them up in waivers, be aware that they're only playing 2 games. And then conversely, there's only one team that's playing 4 games. That's Las Vegas. So, if you're looking for streaming candidates in Las Vegas, obviously Chelsea Gray, Jewel Lloyd, Jackie Young, they're going to be rostered in a lot of leagues. Asia Wilson's going to be rostered in a lot of leagues. So Aaliyah Nee, another rookie, been playing pretty well. And Nalissa Smith would be good streaming options from Las Vegas because they have 4 games this week. So if you're just like, let me pick up a couple players and set my lineup for the week and forget about it, target Las Vegas. And then the last note is Atlanta's schedule. I mean, you lose Ryan Howard, and then you have to start the All-Star break in Las Vegas. And obviously Las Vegas is struggling, but that also means that they're going to be hungry, right? It's this weird thing where you're like, do I want to play a team with a lot of talent when they're on a hot streak or when they're on a cold streak? If you play them on a cold streak, the talent is all of a sudden, they're hungry dogs. Hungry dog runs faster. So you got in Las Vegas on Tuesday for Atlanta. Then they go to Phoenix on Wednesday, talking about Kalea Copper, Satu Sabali may be back, also second half of a back-to-back. And then they go to Minnesota on Sunday. So 3 road games against 3 really good teams that might, have a little extra in their tank for these games. Plus you're without your best player. So Atlanta this week is looking pretty ugly for Atlanta. If they can just salvage 1 win and then, get Ryan Howard back in August, they'll be fine. But really, really tough stretch for Atlanta here.
I think that'll do it for us, Kirien. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the WNBA show. Just a reminder, 15% off any RotoWire subscription with the code YouTube15. That's all one word. So check out RotoWire. And that's not just for WNBA stuff, not just for fantasy basketball. You get the NFL draft kit. There's a million things you get with that subscription, but go check it out, rotowire.com, code YouTube15. Thanks again, everybody. Jason should be back next week, right, Kirien?
Yes, I believe so.
All right, Jason and Kirien, I'll talk to you guys next week.